Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's June 11th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this was a relatively interesting day. Um, we had a really big, strong move up during the overnight. I mean, that's straight up, which you wouldn't expect that to continue. What you'd expect, even if we're going to continue higher, is that it would flatten out and you'd get another channel at a little lesser angle. But this thing just simply reversed. And it was all downhill all the way really into the 2 o'clock close. We had a little bit of a rally here, but you could see we had an overshoot down here, and then it kind of reversed. But even then, it couldn't take off out of here. You just finally had a break out of the bigger blue channel. And the thing was, you really couldn't find this bigger blue channel. It didn't get confirmed until 10 o'clock or so here. So and there really weren't many trades after that. There just weren't a lot of good trades today. There weren't a lot of good setups. This is one of those days where um, I didn't have a lot of good signal bars at places too. So it wasn't just that prices didn't come back to the key entry points. A couple of places where they did, we just didn't really get a good setup, or at least I didn't. So there could be some other trades on there. It's not going to take long today because there's only 3 or 4 or 5 trades that are really good setups. And there's probably a couple of them you could argue to be green in here. And there's probably a couple more, depending on what your chart looks like, that might have set up on, that might be a good trade. But it's kind of hard to see it here. But there's a shorter term 2-tiered channel working out there, and we had a break and a new low. And then we had a correction, but then we continued on in this bigger channel. And you couldn't get this channel confirmed until here. You might have found it off these lows and drug it up, and that would have given you an idea where you might turn right here. But really, I had an email, somebody asked me about this. They had a little different setup here than I've got. They had a big bearish bar hanging right here somewhere. You can see there's a lot of congestion. It just seems like I've got a lot more bars than that particular trader has for whatever reason. But they had a big bearish bar right here, and they went short and it failed. But it was right on their trend line, and you don't see that on my chart really. So I guess there is a little tick lower right here, but that's not a very good signal bar either. It is a second entry short, but you can kind of see we've got this spike in channel going up as well. So and then by the time it gets back up to here, you really, what again, where I was going with this is what this correction is here. Prices are coming back. Notice this little channel that forms. The prices break through and they never test it. Well, guess what? They come all the way back here and they test it to exactly to the tick before they take off again. Another thing that you had to be concerned about here was we barely overshot this midline, and we didn't get down to here, and we're trading back up, and there's a lot of overlap in there. So the fact that we came up this far short, we're probably going to overshoot it by that much. And that's exactly what happens. We overshoot it by about a similar amount that we undershot this side, and then it turns back down. And in the end, there's just a bigger pattern here too. So let me back out where this is a little easier to see. But we'll talk about all that when we get to it. But yeah, this is just like a little spiking channel, but this is mostly sideways in here too. You got to be real careful when you start stacking bars up like that. You probably could argue at this point right here that it's not really, I mean, if you take that all the way to the far right side, I mean, you're not really stacking up at that point right there. So I could see why you might consider going short right there. It's still kind of congestive. There's a lot of bars stacked up side by side. These break higher and come off the trend line. So I guess on a second entry short, you might look at that and say, hey, there's a second entry short here. But at that point, I might have at least drawn this trend line like so. And you can see that you can see that closing above that. So in the end, I think it's a spike in channel, but you could have drawn that either way. It doesn't matter. You still really get your break Actually, you don't get a break here and a new high. On this one, you would have a break and a new high, and then it turns down. So, only problem with this drawing it this way is you don't really, you can see prices don't really fit neatly in there. They don't come back on this side, but they look how neatly they fit in the spiking channel. You can see prices are turning down off the top and turning down off the lows consistently all the way down through there. So I believe that to be the correct trend line. But anyway, let's back out, talk about the trades, and we'll wrap today up. 7 o'clock came right in this little uptrend right here. Then, of course, we hit the upper side. Now, we did get a little overshoot here, so sometimes you got to be careful because usually it's not long after before you'll get a break. But we actually come back first entry and we come back second entry, and you get a second entry long there with a nice bullish bar. That's hard to turn down. It took it a minute, so you might have let this shake you out of it without getting a full scalp. But if you hung on, it would have worked. And it shoots on up, and then of course we get a close outside right here. Not super convincing, but we get another one here, and then we tick higher, and we're a good bit away from the EMA, and that's a very small bar. That's either 2 or 3 ticks. I'm not sure exactly how many ticks that is. That is 3 ticks. So being that far away from the EMA and having been away from the EMA since way back here, we're overdue to at least come back to the EMA, even if we're going to angle off and make a little flatter channel going higher. So you might consider that one. It's never a good idea to try to counter trend trade, but if you're wanting to be aggressive, that's the kind of trade you want to consider. And really, when you're taking this trade, you're only looking at it to come back to the EMA, but this thing just shoots right through. And that's another signal. When that thing didn't bounce at all off the EMA, there's really no resistance. It shoots on through and just shoots straight down. That's all one leg. Odds are you're going to get another leg down. So notice you get a little two-legged swing up. You measure that leg, and then you get another one right there, and lo and behold, we get a perfect measured move. So you got 2 measured legs down. Well, that might be the center of the pattern, so we could go higher from there. So that's another reason to be real careful getting short in right in through here without a good setup. So just keep that in mind. But there's a lower high right here, and there are 2 swings up, so there's a hidden second entry in there. You won't see it at this level, but there is a hidden second entry. So that's another one that you might take. It was real tempting. I'm going to make it green, but if you had a clear 2 legs, 2-legged or second entry short, I guess is what I should say. So if it was clear on your chart and there was 2 legs there and that's a second entry, I'd take that, especially with that nice bearish bar a little bit away from the EMA, because you're probably going to get a second leg down. I mean, when this thing shot straight through like that, that tells you instantly something's changed since the open. They're looking at the market differently. And then when you get 2 measured legs down, you got to be careful, because that just might be the center of the pattern, and we may make a measured leg up from here that looks like this move right here. That's not what ends up happening, but that's something you got to be concerned about on this little correction right here. Is this just a correction, or is the market going to reverse here and go higher and try to make another leg up, or at least retest this high? In the end, it's just a correction, but we don't know that. Going forward, we could look at this a couple of different ways, especially the fact that it came up short here from this trend channel here. And maybe this was just a spike in channel and this is an overshoot. And if that's the case, then you're probably going to get a break over here. And then we move to a new low, and you get 1 leg and you get another leg, and then you actually go a little bit further than that before it tries to correct or tries to reverse. So you just got to keep that in mind. This one, so you may take that trade, but anyway, it pulls back first entry, and then you get a second entry long that fails, and this is a little failed breakout. When you get those 3 matching highs and that big bearish bar, it's starting to look like a little bit of overlap, but we're still making higher lows and higher highs right there, and it's a little 2 swings up. So you may take that trade because it's not really obvious at this point that it's going to be a range. But when we bounce there again, that's why you just about have to ignore that trade, even though it's right on that trend line. Um, you just got too much support right there. It turns out to be a good trade, especially when it didn't break lower right there. We could have turned and gone higher there. So you got to be real careful on that one. And obviously when prices break lower here, what do we always teach about ranges and congestion? Prices almost always come back to test them. And notice how we shot through there so strongly. Well, look how hard it was to get back up there, but they fought it all the way back up and tested that breakout area to the tick, and then the bottom falls out again. So that's what you got to keep in mind, is what are prices doing. So when we went higher here, they were trying to get up here, and they had a hard time getting through the trend line. They finally did, and they still had a hard time going higher. I mean, they had to fight this thing all the way up. It took a lot of hard buying to get that thing back to there, and then once it got back to there, the bottom just falls out again. So I don't know why prices do some of these things they do, but you can just about set your clock to it when prices break out. Even if they're going to go lower here, they almost always come back and test those breakout areas. And this is not even a real long term. I mean, the longer this thing goes, the more likely prices will fail when they break out. So even here they failed, but it was only a temporary failure before the trend continues again. Okay, I had a slight interruption. But anyway, we break lower here. I didn't like this one because it's into all that support, as I said before, but you get two legs down and then you start correcting. Again, this could be just a spike in channel here. Could be a two-tier channel. I tend to believe it was probably two-tier because we kept overshooting this midline here multiple times. Let me make this a little darker just to make it easier to see, and then we'll get it out of the way later. But you can see there, we came up a little, we overshot it a little bit, but we didn't get anywhere near this. So we overshoot the trend line this time. We don't get a setup here. This would have broke higher maybe. I'm not even sure I would have taken it then because you're still closing all inside this. So I'd want to see it come lower and then come back and make a lower high. You make a lower high here, but again, no signal bar. And it runs down here and it makes a failed second entry long. It's right at that midline on this bigger one. If you draw this and you bring the line in, you can kind of see that midline working through there. You didn't really, especially with this already in place, you could just draw this, pull it over here, and then this midline fits in there. And so you pretty much could have this once it turns down here. But it comes back, tests that midline, and gives you a failed second entry long. We're a little ways away from the EMA, but that really confirms that trend line, and there's plenty of room over here to the other side. So I like that one if it breaks lower, and you can see it broke lower and takes on down. Bounces right off the lower trend line, and it comes up, and you get a second entry short here. That is really tempting. I don't think it would have worked. It would be real close, but you got that trend line working up through there, and you're not back to this trend line. You're just kind of out here in the middle of nowhere. It's just generally not a good place to enter. Even though that's a second entry short, you would have got stopped out most likely, and then you get the chance right off the trend line to go short again. Key entry points are always the critical places, and off it goes again, running down. Notice how when it went through there, it comes back and tests that level again, and then gives you another second entry short right there at the EMA and the midline. And that's the first close outside that little short term, and we're not down here yet, so there's a good chance we're going to shoot on down. And this turns out to be a really good trade. Both of these were really good trades. You would have had a runner on them most likely, and you could have ridden this strong move down. And you can see there's another short-term trend line right there. It didn't get confirmed here, and you don't want to go short right into here when it looks like we're getting an overshoot already. And so you just got to kind of leave that alone. Then of course we bounce. I'm not crazy about going long down here, but there is an overshoot. This is a reversal type pattern. Notice you got a first entry and then you push through the EMA, second entry, and it fails real quick and you get a big bullish bar and you're going long above the EMA. You got to figure there's a good chance we're coming back to here at a minimum. We did overshoot, so we could just reverse. So you might take that one. It's still a little aggressive. It is a reversal type pattern. And look at it go. And for a minute there, I thought we really were going to get a reversal, but we don't. You get a lower high right here, which I wouldn't have a problem going short right there, except, again, not a very good signal bar. There's a nice little bearish inside bar, but inside bars are just, they're very unreliable. And now you got 3 or 4 bars stacking up there. It's not a good place to go short, really. And, of course, it just takes off. And that really takes you into the 2 o'clock hour. So you just really didn't get a lot of chances. Here's one of those being that far away from the EMA with that bearish bar. It's kind of similar to what we had up here. So that's one you might make green. Just trying to get a scalp out of it. And if you catch the high, which you would have, the reversal area, you could have ridden that all the way down too. Honestly here, you wouldn't have probably got in this trade on this bar. You probably would have had to wait for this bar, and that's really hard to do, to watch it come down here and get near the trend line and start bouncing again. So that would have been a hard trade to trade and get into anyway. This would have been the more logical place to enter. You still got a lot of room back to the EMA, and you're probably going to get that second leg back at a minimum. But you just don't get a setup there. And I'm not going to jump in with that signal bar. And you see, it was, people were undecided. It did end up dropping on down, but it wasn't a rush to go back down there. But you'll see that at turning points like that. You know, the buyers, there's still a lot of buyers coming in thinking that maybe they've caught a reversal, and finally they give up and realize they're wrong, and then the bottom falls out. The buying dries up and the bottom falls out. So yeah, interesting day. Big move down, but just on my chart anyway, not a lot of entries there. Based on, I only saw one chart today that a trader sent me. His chart didn't quite look like mine. He had this trend line right through here, but somehow this reversal was off of this same trend line right here. So I don't know how he came to that. I mean, mine, the only way I could do that was, I guess, if I wasn't using the closes. Let me see if I can just mark this. I mean, actually, maybe he did have it drawn that way, because that's where mine breaks lower on the second entry right there. Maybe he just had a much more different looking bar right there than I do. And, you know, and it's fairly bearish on mine, but there's still 2 or 3 ticks there at the bottom. I mean, it closes almost in the middle. One more tick, and I'd say it probably closed in the middle. So it's not a great signal bar. But maybe that's where he's entering. He just had a very different looking bar. Maybe that's why it looks so different. But anyway, big move down, not to have more trades than that. But it seems like my signal bars lately, you know, every once in a while I hear people complain about their signal bars, and I'm always thinking, well, they look great on my chart. I don't know. But it seems like lately I've had a few of those days myself, so I kind of understand the frustration. But I'm not going to change my mind on it, because signal bars really help you filter out of trades. I mean, if it's close, maybe, but if it's not even close, I don't care if it drops and goes straight to the bottom. It's not worth it, because the next 10 times you try it, it'll fail on you. And that's what happens with those trades. If you want if you're looking for 3 or 4 or 5 things with a trade, you want most of them to be in your favor. You don't want even one of them to be against you, and one of those being the signal bar. You generally want a trend bar in your direction of entry. So if I'm wanting to go short, I want a big bearish trend bar like this right here. And if I'm going long, I want a big bullish trend bar like this one right here. or something like this right here. This is like a little reversal type bar here. Maybe, I don't know if y'all can see those so small, but you can see that it traded way down here and it closes all the way on its very high. That's a bullish bar. That's a good signal bar. Here's one. It opens down here. It tries to go lower. It actually breaks lower below that bar and turns instantly and goes out the other side. I wouldn't mind buying right there, but you could wait for that bar to close and it's still very bullish and put a buy stop right there. And if it breaks higher, it's probably going higher. So those signal bars, you can see you had a good one there. You had a good one there. That's a good signal bar on a second entry right there, but it's in the middle of no man's land. You got several bars stacking up. This wasn't a good signal bar here at all because it's so bullish. You can see that. This was a great signal bar. This would have been one if it hadn't been into that support. This was a good signal bar. This is not a bad signal bar because it's so small. It's very low risk. This was a great signal bar right here. So that's what good signal bars look like. If you were trying to go long right there, that would have been a great signal bar. Opens down here, trades all the way up and closes on its very high. Here's another one that does the same thing. It opens and trades down, then turns and closes on its very high. That's the kind of bar you'd want to see trying to get long. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for today. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.